Manuel Salmerón Sanchez. I'm a professor of biomedical engineering at the University of Glasgow, and my research work is related to tissue regeneration in general, and we have done quite a lot of work on bone regeneration. We have all had a bone fracture, and we know that those fractures in general are able to heal spontaneously. We only need to be patient, and after a few weeks we have our bone completely healed. But there are situations in which we have a major bone loss, like for example a car accident where there's been an open wound and bone loss, or a situation where there is, for example, a tumor growing in the bone and has to be removed. So if there is a critical bone loss, this won't heal spontaneously, and we need to put something in between. So our research is about how can we engineer materials, biomaterials, that are going to allow bone to grow. And what we do is to stimulate cells that we have in our body called stem cells. They can differentiate into any type of tissue. We isolate these cells from a patient. These cells are grown into the lab, into these materials. Once they are differentiated and mature enough, they are transplanted back into the body to promote this bone regeneration and fracture healing. So to me, the public is part of what we do, because the research that we do is very patient oriented. So we work to improve the health of people in trying to find new treatments for diseases and clinical needs that are still in need of a better solution. We want the public to be aware of what we are doing. We want the public to be aware that the funding that we get to do this research will come back to them with major benefits, so that most of the funding that we use comes from the taxpayer. But I think it's a very well invested money, and people need to be aware that the technology that we are developing in the end will end up being part of the NHS, will be delivered at other places in the world, and we want to be doing that with a good understanding from the public and support. They will be able to understand how we are able to grow, in this case, bone in the lab, how the combination of engineering, materials engineering and stem cell engineering, and how to manipulate these two different entities, materials and cells, to come together and produce bone in the lab that can be then used to heal a patient. I think that there will be curiosity around 3D printing. How can we use a printer to produce a three-dimensional structure that is going to be biologically active and stimulate the stem cells to grow bone in the lab? How materials technology can come together with basic biology to engineer tissues that can be used in a living being afterwards.